Right, good afternoon, and thanks for clicking on to the Monday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. It is the beginning of another week, and what a weekend it was. We had, potentially the warmest day in Highland history, but, you have to be very careful with what you're saying. Even stating facts these days appears to, it seems like people can say what they want and be abusive and whatnot. And, there's been no mention on this channel with regards to this attributed to climate change or hyping things up. It was forecasted way back in the early portions of last week that we would see the potential for 30s. The models were, time and time again, model run after model run, day after day, suggesting widespread upper 20s and even some low 30s. And that was the case. Aviemore 32.2 Celsius. No, it isn't beside a big runway, a tarmac, jet engines, and whatever. I suppose there's people out there, probably idiots out there, that would suggest that the threw a few fighter jets out of Lossiemouth and flew them around the Aviemore area to build the temperature up to surpass record-breaking levels. I'm being flippant because some of the comments have been absolutely ridiculous, and anybody that deems it necessary to be abusive to me will just simply get blocked. I don't really care, quite honestly. I'm delivering facts. These are temperatures that have been recorded. We did see widespread upper 20s, and several locations reached the 30-degree mark. Back on Saturday, we've seen another 30 in Aviemore yesterday with Aknagar. Exceeded 31 Celsius for two straight days. And it was a record-breaking warm day. We've seen 30 in Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, England and Wales. I think the warmest temperature was 33.1 Celsius recorded at Cardiff and Ross on Y. And big temperature swings, by the way, as well. We've seen temperatures, in excess of 25 Celsius swing between morning and night in Aboyne, for example. 31 Celsius was recorded here. Then the temperature dropped to only 5.5 Celsius, and then the temperature shot back up again. Here, even at the house, albeit the record is very brief, it did reach 28.5 Celsius, which is the warmest temperature I've recorded here so far. Then easterly winds, suppressed that warming quite considerably, only 26.6 on Saturday and 24.5 yesterday, which means there was no heat wave. If you're going by the Met Office definition of a heat wave 3 days in a row above 25, it was not achieved here due to that easterly wind. But elsewhere, we've seen about 3 days of mid to high 20s, and a couple of spots. Aviemore, Altnahara was 29.9. That was a new all-time record here. Kinloch Hugh in the Northwest Highlands also recorded its warmest day on record. Aknagar, 2 days in a row, 31 plus. Now, the average temperature is between 16 and 17 at this time of the year, so you're talking between 14 and as much as 15 Celsius above average. Now, I did look up the average temperature for the 12th of July for Aviemore, and, good old AI overview said 16 Celsius was the average for the 12th of July. If that's the case, that was over 16 Celsius above average back on Saturday. So very impressive stuff. And yes, weather is weather, but when it's record breaking, you have to talk about it. You have to discuss it. And we'll leave it at that. But essentially, it's very, very frustrating when you're seeing the nonsense on social media, just simply stating facts. In terms of Highland weather, some of Lee's weather network recorded temperatures as high as 33.3. Now, these are good weather stations, good quality location, and several locations in excess of 32 Celsius, which is pretty incredible. Look at all these 32s or above, and then you've got 4 locations: Aviemore, Botegarten, Avilochen, Del Chiriac, I can't pronounce that, all recording temperatures in excess of 33 Celsius. back on Saturday. So, yep, it certainly was a warm day out there for sure. And there is interesting things going on with regards to what's happened today. We've obviously got a frontal system that is moving north-northeastwards, and temperatures are considerably cooler than what they were even back yesterday. Only 20, 21 Celsius as opposed to upper 20s. So you're talking a good 10, 12 Celsius below what they have been over the last few days. Still holding on to some heat across the southeast, but generally speaking, we're seeing an area of low pressure bringing in fresher Atlantic air once again across Ireland, Northern Ireland, and the rest of the UK. In terms of, let me just see here. In terms of, this is visible satellite imagery. There's that area of low pressure just to the northwest of Ireland. There's that frontal boundary that is swinging northeastwards, bringing in that fresher air underneath that circulation itself to Ireland, Northern Ireland, and much of the UK. But the southeast corner remains a little bit warmer. And with this warmer air now getting drifted further north, temperatures are very warm up across the far north of Europe here. We've even got 30 Celsius towards the Arctic Circle over Northern Europe here. You can see the cool down across the UK and Ireland. We're still very warm across Iberia, France, and the Low Countries as well. Got a pocket of slightly less warmer across central areas of Europe. It's been very hot across Greece and Turkey, into the Balkan region as well. And so, yeah, in terms of lightning activity, let's have a quick look at the visible, not the visible satellite imagery. This is the radar imagery of Met Arion based in Ireland. And you can see here some pretty heavy rainfall moving northwards here. Some pretty widespread showers across Ireland, Northern Ireland, and a few over England and Wales as well. In terms of lightning, the skies are very, very dark here, but there is no, I think my wife thought you could hear a couple of rumbles. I'm not overly sure about that, but not seen any flashes, not seen any rain yet, but certainly the atmosphere feels pretty loaded in terms of activity. So we'll wait and see if we can get anything to come from those clouds in the not so distant future. Looking at a couple of lightning, basically a few lightning flashes to the northwest of Donegal, over the north of Donegal, and one over northern portions of Northern Ireland. Fairly widespread lightning activity over Europe here. If you notice, if we zoom out, you can see that here over parts of southern Norway and Sweden, and quite a lot of lightning activity over southern portions of Finland, and then in the central areas of Europe here. Moving on then, I want to show you a couple of other interesting things. Again, too many windows opened up here. This is off the CFSV2 for the next 7 days. You can see here the strongest ridge compared to average to the north of the UK. We've got another area of higher pressure building in from the Iberia up into the southern portions of France here. There's a trough that is the trigger to more instability edging into Ireland and the UK here. This is obviously a 7-day mean, so this is between the 14th and the 21st of July here. Looking into week 2, an interesting look here. Lower pressure extending into the northern half of Ireland and the UK here. Higher pressure to the south. Keeping an eye on some very, very warm air to the south here. And then as we move into the following week, 20th of July through the 4th of August here, lower pressure to the north, higher pressure to the south here. And that higher pressure then extends northwards here out over the open Atlantic. Could we see something a little bit fresher coming in from the north? That remains to be seen. In terms of precipitation then, move back to the current period. Week 1, you can see here it's actually wetter than average, which is good news for many. Still slightly drier than average across the far south of the UK, which is unfortunate. And then into France and in the central areas of Europe into week 2. Still wetter than average signal here showing up, and then into week 3, wetter north, drier south. In terms of the temperature anomalies, upcoming week, and you can see here firmly warmer than average. And it's going to be interesting to see how this July pans out in terms of temperature. Looking then at some of the individual model runs here. This is off the ECMWF, sorry. Let's zoom out and see the temperature profile You can see here there's the fresh air moving in across the UK and Ireland, pushing the heat out. But we do have another little tongue. So we actually have wet, windy conditions developing during the course of tomorrow. That area of low pressure actually deepens a little bit. We see some fairly strong winds, 40, 50 mile per hour, and exposure on the southern flank of that low. And then as we move towards the middle portions of the week, we lose some of that fresher air, and we actually start to see the temperatures building again into the mid-20s, even across parts of northeastern Scotland, upper 20s across the south and southeast of the UK. And you can see here we've got some very warm air once again building into Iberia. And you can see that it kind of lingers as we move towards the weekend here off the ECMWF model here. If we look at the GFS model and look at the same time frame here, because there is some pretty warm indicators yet again from the models here. So as we play through, you can see here that we lose that slightly less warm air, that fresher Atlantic air, as we progress into Wednesday and Thursday of this week. So we warm things back up. We lose the low pressure, high pressure returns, and we actually see the return of some warmth again, but nowhere near as extreme as what we've seen during the course of the weekend. And then as we play through the week, you can see here off the GFS an area of low pressure becoming much more entrenched over the UK and Ireland here. Remember that CFS V2 showing lower pressure in the upper levels, and this is going quite nicely inside with that. You can see some pretty deep low pressure. If we'll go into the overview chart here, you can actually see that quite clearly off this model here. If we skip back a few frames, you can see an area of low pressure at 992 millibars, bringing wind and rain on the southern flank of that low, so cooler, wetter and windier across the north, somewhat warmer and drier the further south you go. Again, fairly routine this summer so far. Continue to play through, and you can see here that higher pressure tries to re-establish once again also here. Looking at the obviously the next 24 to 48 hours, there's that area of low pressure swinging in, bringing spells of longer rain. Then we see higher pressure for a time Wednesday and Thursday. Got a next area of low pressure moving towards the northwest of both the UK and Ireland. That's going to try and bring in that warmer, more humid air back in play as we move towards later Wednesday and Thursday. Looking at the ECMWF, and we'll play through this loop. You can see here some pretty low pressure dominant weather, which is quite an interesting look. But I want to draw your attention to the 850s here, because there is some model indication as we play through all the way out towards the end of this month. We're keeping an eye on the potential of something warmer trying to lift in from the south, so that needs to be taken into consideration. Is it the ECMWF and the GFS? Let me just see here. That's the ECMWF model here, but I want to show you the GFS. Is it the GFS that's indicating? Yes, it is. So look at this here. This is a long way out, granted, but with the MJO in the current phase over the Pacific, upward motion the Pacific, subsidence over the Atlantic basin, yes, we do have a more unsettled regime coming back into play. But I think until we properly see that MJO and the upward motion moving into the Atlantic basin, more subsidence over the Pacific, there is always opportunity for more heat surges coming up from the south. So I'm not necessarily saying that we're going to see heat wave number 4 towards the end of the month, but this is something that I'm going to keep an eye on anyway, and it'll be interesting to watch this space going forward. The MJO, as I said, is heading out of phases 4 into phases 5 and 6, so there is eastward progress in that rising versus sinking motion within the atmosphere between Pacific and the Indian Ocean here. And that's it. I think that's it for now here. Looking at the temperatures, you can see over the next few days here. This is into Tuesday. We've still got the much fresher conditions in place. Where we've got the sunshine, we will see the temperatures creeping above 20 Celsius. During the course of Wednesday here, you can see widespread temperatures creeping back into the low to mid 20s, especially across England and Wales, but even across Scotland, we're going to see low 20s returning into the day on Thursday. You can see here that we have got the mid 20s on that Murray coast, and then in the Friday, you can see here again temperatures into the low 20s across the north, especially along the Murray coast where you've got some firn effect. southeastern Scotland through the central belt, you're probably talking about there around 2021. But then England and Wales were generally low to mid 20s here as a general rule. In terms of the tropics, then, not a huge amount to talk about with regards to both the Pacific and the Atlantic. It remains fairly quiet at this moment in time. The only area worth noting at the moment is in the West Pacific. You can see here 3 areas of interest in the West Pacific, but the Indian Pacific and the Atlantic, in the East Pacific at least anyway, is fairly quiet, and that's all to do with the Magellan Oscillation at this moment in time. So thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and leave a comment, and I'll see you all being well tomorrow with more. Bye for now.